On October 1, 2017, the country and the world were shocked by a mass shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. While mass shootings were not unique events, this particular incident was disturbing in several ways. Lingering questions remain about the shooter himself and how he was able to set up a deadly vantage point above the crowd from which he randomly selected his victims. Nearly every mass shooter has a motive, leaving behind evidence, a statement, or an explanation. What were the events of the Las Vegas massacre? Who was the shooter? How was he able to transport and use such a wide array of weapons so easily? What was the perceived motive behind such an act? Almost a year after a gunman opened fire from a hotel window on 22,000 concertgoers, killing 58 people and injuring hundreds more, the police released their final report on the mass shooting. The mass shooter was 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, a wealthy man known as a gambler at various casinos. He had arrived at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in late September 2017, driving his Hyundai Tucson SUV from his home in Mesquite, Nevada, about 75 miles northeast of Las Vegas, and arrived at the hotel around 3 p.m. Paddock was a former real estate investor and accountant who earned his living as a professional gambler, making around $2.2 million, and was treated as a VIP. Paddock checked into Suite 32135 on the 32nd floor and booked an adjacent suite under his girlfriend's name, a corner suite that offered a wide field of view and a clear line of sight overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. Police had full access to dozens of surveillance cameras that recorded Paddock's every move, from elevator hallways to corridors and his many trips in and out of the hotel. Stephen Martinez, the senior vice president for global security at MGM Resorts, the owner of Mandalay Bay, stated, "He was an extremely ordinary guest. In our estimation, he was the least concerning among our guests. All he did was what you'd expect from a regular guest, using food and beverage services delivered to his room. He preferred playing video poker machines and would sit for hours." Deputy Chief Andrew Walsh of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said, "Paddock didn't raise any suspicions. He was just one man among thousands of hotel guests, appearing like a middle-aged man carrying lots of luggage to his room." On October 1, 2017, Paddock ordered room service, and records show he opened and closed the doors to both suites several times that evening. Below his suite, a country music concert featuring Jason Aldean was taking place. Paddock became the final guest at the 3-day Route 91 Harvest Festival on the Las Vegas Strip, attended by over 22,000 people. Aldean's performance began that night. And the celebrations erupted with what many initially thought were fireworks, until it became clear they were gunshots. People fled for cover, some were killed, many injured. Some risked their lives using their bodies to shield loved ones and even strangers. As people crouched for safety and over 100 rounds were fired, confusion and speculation spread, prompting the question: how did a lone gunman remove a non-opening, 800-pound window? The simple answer is that he smashed it with a hammer and opened fire. Some doubted this explanation, but the idea of window removal was supported by video and photo evidence from the night of the shooting. Chief Andrew Walsh said, "People were running in all directions without knowing where the shots were coming from." Then hotel staff became aware of the shooting. Security guard Jesus Campos was finishing his shift when he received a call to check a room alarm on the 32nd floor. That would be his final call of the night. He felt free at that moment. What he didn't know then was that the source of the alarm was a guest who had left his door slightly ajar. That was a stroke of luck, because without it, Campos might not have discovered the shooter's location, saving more lives. Campos took the stairs to the 32nd floor and saw an L-shaped metal bracket screwed onto the door and frame, preventing it from opening. He went up to the 33rd floor and then took the elevator back down. Photos of the bracket show it had been installed from inside the hallway. He said, "I didn't know what was going on, but it wasn't normal, so I had to call our security team." His call was transferred to the maintenance engineering department. Campos, who was unarmed, entered the hallway on the 32nd floor and heard a sound resembling a drill from behind the doors at the far end of the hallway, inside suite 32135. As he approached the strange noise, the person holed up in the suite saw him coming and opened fire through the door. By that time, thousands of people were already calling 911, and police were en route. Campos said, "I was stunned and went to take cover. It took a moment to process what was happening. I reached down to pull up my pants and saw blood running down them." Campos found safety in an alcove and radioed for help. Mandalay Bay engineer Stephen Paddock continued to the 32nd floor after receiving Campos's report. Upon exiting the elevator, he later said he heard what sounded like a power tool. Campos also saw Stephen coming and told him, "Hide, it's not safe." At that moment, more shots rang out. Stephen dove for cover as bullets whizzed down the hallway toward him, then called for help over the radio. He said, "I thought if I didn't make it out of that hallway alive, I needed to tell the police to come upstairs, because that's where the shooter was." A 911 dispatcher was recorded saying, "We have multiple incoming reports. We've got 33 calls on hold. It's an active shooter." Meanwhile, bullets were still flying outside. Officer Brady Cook was one of the police responders on the scene. Another officer's body camera captured video as Brady and other officers came under fire and took cover behind their vehicles. He was shot, and his screams were audible. Confusion among dispatchers and police was understandable, as they received unconfirmed reports of shooters in several hotels, including the Tropicana Las Vegas. As part of the chaos, armed Mandalay Bay security guards initially thought the shots were coming from outside. They left the hotel to search for the shooter but were unable to locate him. At that time, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Officer Richard Cole and rookie officer Brandon Engstrom had just begun their shift. As they arrived, a colleague radioed, "Be advised, it's fully automatic gunfire from an elevated position. Take cover." According to Brandon, it was their sergeant who activated the radio, and the sound of rapid gunfire came through. He immediately shouted for them to get to their cars, gear up, and head to the concert venue. One of the most disturbing aspects for all officers on site was that every time an officer keyed the radio mic, the rapid gunfire could be clearly heard. Upon arrival, Brandon and Richard were approached by a man carrying his injured wife. Richard said, "He came to our car carrying his wife, Giovanna, in his arms, saying, 'Help me, I'm a cop.'" The man was Frank Calzadias, an officer with the Salt River Police Department in Arizona. He and his wife Giovanna, who had been shot in the head, had traveled to Las Vegas for the concert. Brandon and Richard realized she needed immediate medical attention, so they transported them in their vehicle to the University Medical Center in Las Vegas, while Frank Calzadias performed chest compressions on his wife. Richard stated that while en route to the hospital and updating dispatch over the radio, police had identified the source of the gunfire in Mandalay Bay. A complete sweep of the hotel was initiated to evacuate gamblers and other guests from tables and slot machines. SWAT teams cleared each floor, breaching rooms with weapons drawn and escorting guests out due to the presence of an active shooter. Upon reaching the 32nd floor, there was complete silence, and a room service cart was seen outside suite 32134 with wires coming out of it. Fearing it might be a bomb, officers proceeded with extreme caution. Upon closer inspection, they discovered the cart was rigged with a small surveillance camera hidden under a panel and aimed down the hallway toward them. They dismantled overhead lights to create cover and placed a breach charge on the suite door. After detonating the explosive, they stormed the room and found Paddock dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The suite was filled with over 1,000 spent shell casings and an arsenal of weapons, some on the beds, some on the floor, and others stacked in the bathtub. A small surveillance camera was also mounted above the peephole of the suite's front door. When police opened the adjoining suite, they found even more weapons, totaling 24 firearms, including AR-15 and AR-10 rifles with armor-piercing bullets, some with high-capacity magazines, and over 5,000 rounds of unused ammunition. As for the motive, reports including a statement from Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo to Local News 3 said he doubted a motive would ever emerge. Other reports noted that Paddock did not raise any red flags, but it later emerged that he had booked reservations at various public events such as a Chicago hotel during the Lollapalooza Festival and the Life is Beautiful music festival also held in Las Vegas. The investigation revealed that Paddock's computers showed he had researched many topics and websites in preparation for the attack, including outdoor concert venues, Las Vegas SWAT tactics, weapons, and explosives. It was also found that he had purchased nearly 60 weapons, mostly rifles, between October 2016 and September 2017. The investigation confirmed there was no second shooter. Interestingly, unlike most mass shooters, Paddock left no suicide note or statement indicating his motive. What was found was a notebook containing tactical calculations such as distances, wind deviation, bullet drop, and shooting trajectories. As for the motive, nothing was conclusively proven. The report stated that there was no evidence of extremism, ideology, or any theory suggesting that Paddock supported or followed any group or any domestic or foreign terrorist organization. One factor that stood out was that Paddock's wealth had declined sharply before the shooting, as he had lost nearly 3/4 of it in the 2 years leading up to the attack. His total bank account balances had once exceeded $2 million, but that amount had dropped to just over $500,000 later on. His losses included over $600,000 lost in casinos, significant payments to credit card companies, and large amounts spent on the purchase of weapons and ammunition. Perhaps this was the sole factor, the motive that led him to plan his rampage. But there may have been other factors. Paddock's brothers provided more information. One brother, Eric, told investigators that his last contact with Paddock was via text messages about 2 weeks before the shooting. Eric believes that Paddock may have carried out the attack because he had done everything he wanted to do in life and was simply bored with everything. If that was the case, then perhaps Paddock planned the attack to kill as many people as possible because he wanted to be known as the one with the highest number of victims. Paddock had always wanted to be the best and to be known by everyone. His other brother, Bruce, said he hadn't spoken to Paddock in over 10 years and believed his brother suffered from mental illness, paranoia, and delusions. A third brother had not been in contact with Paddock for the past 2 decades, so any motive remained speculative at best. The state of Nevada classified the shooting as an act of terrorism, but federal law did not define it as such. To this day, it has not been officially classified as terrorism under federal law. This detail is significant because MGM Resorts International, the company that owns Mandalay Bay, cited federal law in lawsuits filed against it, arguing that the company bore no responsibility whatsoever for the victims of the shooting that day. Lawsuits were filed by victims and their families against MGM Resorts and Mandalay Bay, but these were challenged in court under the premise that the federal terrorism law did not apply. MGM and Mandalay Bay argued that the private security company managing the facility was the party responsible, not the companies themselves. A large settlement was eventually reached against the casino, MGM Resorts International, and their insurance companies, with compensation awarded to thousands of victims and their families.